During the final countdown to the new year, I discovered a truth about my relationship that I was never ready to accept. Hey Reddit, I think we should talk about what happens after midnight. My girlfriend Rebecca said this while standing in our kitchen, her back to me, hands gripping the counter like she was bracing for impact. It was December 31st, 11:47 p.m. Through our apartment windows, I could see fireworks already going off in the distance, impatient people who couldn't wait 13 more minutes. I'm 42. She's 39. We'd been together for 6 years, living together for 4. This was supposed to be just another New Year's Eve. Take out Chinese food, cheap champagne. Maybe we'd actually stay awake until midnight this time. What do you mean? I asked, setting down my plate of lo mein. She turned around. Her eyes were red, but I couldn't tell if she'd been crying or if it was just the wine. I mean us. What happens to us? The thing about hearing words like that is your brain knows what's coming before your heart does. My stomach dropped, but I kept my voice steady. It's not even midnight yet. Can we not do this right now? That's exactly the problem, she said. You always want to push things off. Not right now. Not today. Maybe tomorrow. But tomorrow never comes, does it? I stood there in my worn joggers and old college sweatshirt, feeling suddenly exposed despite being fully clothed. Where is this coming from? Rebecca laughed, but there was no humor in it. Where is this coming from? God, do you even listen to yourself? Do you hear how checked out you sound? I'm not checked out. I'm standing right here. Physically sure. She grabbed her wine glass and took a long drink. But when was the last time you were actually present? When was the last time we had a real conversation that wasn't about grocery lists or whose turn it is to take out the trash? I wanted to argue, but my mind went blank. When was the last time? Last week? Last month? She must have seen the uncertainty on my face because she nodded slowly. Exactly. You can't even remember. Becca, it's been a long year. Work's been crazy, you know that. The promotion, the extra hours. You got that promotion 14 months ago, she interrupted. And you know what? You were just as distant before it. The promotion is just another excuse. The building shook slightly as someone set off what sounded like an M80 in the alley. I flinched. Rebecca didn't. I don't understand what you want from me, I said, and I hated how defensive I sounded. I want you to want this, she said, gesturing between us. I want you to fight for us. I want you to act like losing me would actually matter to you. Of course it would matter. What are you talking about? She set her wine glass down with enough force that I worried it might crack. 3 weeks ago, I told you my sister was getting divorced. Do you remember what you said? I searched my memory. I don't remember the exact words. You said, that sucks, and went back to your phone. Her voice cracked. My sister's marriage of 11 years was ending, and you couldn't even look up from Twitter for 30 seconds. I'm sorry. I should have been more supportive. It's not about being supportive. She was raising her voice now, something she rarely did. It's about the fact that you didn't even care enough to pretend to care. You just went through the motions. Like you go through the motions with everything. With me, I felt heat rising in my chest, some combination of shame and anger. That's not fair. I've been there for you. When? She challenged. Give me one example from the last 6 months where you actually showed up for me emotionally. The clock on the microwave said 11:52. 8 minutes until the new year. 8 minutes until whatever this was supposed to become. Your birthday, I said. I took you to that Italian place you like. Rebecca's laugh was bitter. You made a reservation. Congratulations. You performed the basic minimum function of a boyfriend. Do you even remember what we talked about that night? I didn't. I tried to picture the evening, but it was just a blur of dim lighting and pasta. I told you I was thinking about going back to school, she said quietly. I told you I'd been looking at programs. Architecture. Something I've wanted to do since I was a kid. Do you remember what you said? Silence from me. You said cool, and asked if I wanted to split the tiramisu. She wiped at her eyes. That's when I knew. That's when I really knew that you weren't listening anymore. Maybe you never were. That's not true. I listen. Then what's my favorite color? The question caught me off guard. What? Favorite color? Simple question. We've been together for 6 years. Blue, I said, though I wasn't certain. It's green. Has been since we met. The sweater I'm wearing right now? The one I wear constantly? It's green. I looked at her sweater. It was green. How had I not noticed? Okay, fine. I got one thing wrong. It's not one thing. Her voice broke completely now. It's everything. It's all the little things that add up to the big truth that you've been too comfortable to see. You don't love me anymore. Maybe you never did. Maybe you just love the idea of not being alone. That's not true, I said, but the words felt hollow even as I said them. Prove it then, she said. Tell me one thing about me that you've learned in the last year. One dream I have. One fear. One thing that keeps me up at night. Anything. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Outside, someone was counting down already, drunk and early. 10, 9, 8. I thought so, Rebecca said softly. Becca, please. Let's not do this. Not tonight. When then? She asked. When is the right time to admit that this thing between us died a long time ago and we've just been too scared to bury it? 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. The sky exploded with color. Fireworks bloomed in reds and golds and silvers, painting our kitchen in flickering light. I could hear our neighbors cheering through the walls. Someone was playing Auld Lang Syne too loud. Rebecca looked at me, and in that moment, I saw it. Really saw it. The exhaustion in her eyes. The resignation. This wasn't a fight to her. It was a eulogy. I need you to leave, she said. What? I need you to leave. Tonight. Right now. This is my apartment too. You can't just kick me out. You're right, she said, reaching into her pocket and pulling out a folded piece of paper. So I'm leaving instead. I've already signed a lease on a new place. I move in on the 3rd. I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't keep pretending. The paper was a rental agreement. I could see her signature at the bottom. You planned this, I said, and it felt like the floor was tilting. This whole conversation. You planned it. I've been planning it for 3 months, she admitted. I kept hoping you'd give me a reason not to. But you never did. You never even noticed I was pulling away. Had she been pulling away? I tried to think back. Had there been signs? There must have been signs. I don't understand, I said, and I hated how pathetic I sounded. I know you don't, she said, and there was something almost like pity in her voice. That's the saddest part. You really don't understand what you've lost because you never really knew what you had. She walked past me toward our bedroom. I stood there, frozen, as she dragged out a suitcase I hadn't noticed was already packed. Wait, I finally said. Just wait. Can we talk about this? We just did talk about it. For 6 years, we've been talking about it. But you weren't listening. I'll listen now. I'll do better. She stopped at the door, her hand on the knob. That's the thing about doing better. It only matters if you do it before everything falls apart. After? It's just damage control. And I'm too tired to be your rehabilitation project. Where are you going? My brother's place. Just for tonight. Then I'm staying with Claire until my apartment's ready. Claire. Her best friend. The one who'd always looked at me like I was slightly disappointing. I thought she was just overprotective. I can't believe you're doing this, I said. Rebecca had turned to look at me one last time. I can't believe it took me this long. And then she was gone. The door closed with a soft click that sounded louder than any of the fireworks still exploding outside. I stood there in the kitchen, surrounded by half-eaten Chinese food and a bottle of champagne we'd never opened. The apartment felt different already, like it knew it wasn't really home anymore. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother. Happy New Year. Hope you and Rebecca are having a great night. I didn't respond. Instead, I sat down on the couch and tried to figure out what the hell had just happened. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I'd been asking the wrong question. It wasn't what had just happened. It was what had been happening for months, maybe years, that I'd been too blind or too comfortable to see. I picked up my phone and opened my photos, scrolling back through the last year. There we were at that Italian restaurant on her birthday. She was smiling, but now that I was really looking, I could see the smile didn't reach her eyes. There we were at the lake last summer. She was looking at the camera. I was looking at my phone. There we were at Christmas, just last week. She'd made dinner. I'd fallen asleep on the couch before dessert. How had I not seen it? I kept scrolling. 6 months back. A year. 2 years. The further I went, the more obvious it became. She'd been fading from my life like a photograph left too long in the sun, and I hadn't noticed because I'd stopped really looking at her. When had that happened? When had I stopped seeing her as Rebecca, the woman who laughed at stupid puns and cried at dog videos and wanted to be an architect, and started seeing her as just another piece of furniture in my life? My phone rang. For a second, I thought it might be her, calling to say she'd changed her mind. But it was my best friend David. "Happy New Year, man. You guys doing anything fun?" Rebecca left, I heard myself say. "What? Like, went to a party?" "No. Left. She's gone." There was a pause. "I'm coming over." "You don't have to. I'm already grabbing my keys." He showed up 20 minutes later with a six-pack and the kind of serious expression that made everything feel more real. "Talk to me," he said, settling onto the couch. So I did. I told him everything Rebecca had said. Every accusation. Every example. And as I talked, I watched David's face carefully, looking for signs that she was being unfair, that she was overreacting. But his expression just got more uncomfortable. "You knew," I said. "You knew this was coming." David took a long drink of his beer. "Not that it was coming tonight. But yeah, man. The writing's been on the wall for a while. Why didn't you say something?" "I did," he said. "Multiple times. Last summer, I told you that you seemed checked out. You said you were just stressed about work. At my wedding, I asked if everything was okay with you guys because Rebecca seemed sad. You said everything was fine. What was I supposed to do? Stage an intervention?" I remembered those conversations now. He had tried to warn me. I dismissed it. "I'm an idiot," I said. "You're not an idiot. You're just, I don't know, man. You've been on autopilot for a long time. Ever since the thing with your dad. My dad had died 3 years ago. Heart attack. Quick and unexpected. I'd taken a week off work, handled the funeral, and then just gone back to normal. Or what I'd thought was normal. What does my dad have to do with this?" David looked at me like I was being deliberately obtuse. "Dude, you never dealt with it. You just packed it away and kept moving. And I get it. That's how you've always handled hard stuff. But you can't do that with everything. You can't just shut down emotionally and expect the people around you to be okay with it." "I didn't shut down." "You did," he said gently. "Rebecca tried to be patient. We all did. But at some point, you have to actually feel things. You have to let people in. Otherwise, what's the point?" I wanted to argue, but I couldn't. Because he was right. After my dad died, I'd felt this huge, overwhelming grief, and instead of dealing with it, I'd just turned it off. And apparently, I'd turned off everything else with it. "So what do?" I asked. David shrugged. "I don't know if there's anything you can do. Not tonight, anyway. Maybe not ever. Sometimes people reach their limit, you know? And once they do, there's no going back. That's not helpful. I'm not here to be helpful. I'm here to be honest. You want helpful? Go to therapy. Work on your shit. Figure out why you keep people at arm's length. But don't do it because you want Rebecca back. Do it because you don't want to end up having this same conversation again in 5 years with someone else." We sat in silence for a while, watching the last of the fireworks through the window. The new year was an hour old, and it already felt like the worst year of my life. "Did she say anything to you?" I asked. "Before tonight." David hesitated. "A few weeks ago, we ran into each other at the coffee shop. She asked me if I thought you were happy. With her. With your life. What did you say?" I said I didn't know. That you didn't really talk about that stuff. And she just nodded, like I'd confirmed something she already suspected. "I am happy," I said. "Was happy? I don't know. I thought I was." Being comfortable isn't the same as being happy, David said. And I think maybe you confused the two. He stayed until 3 in the morning, until the beer was gone and we'd exhausted every possible angle of the conversation. After he left, I lay in bed, our bed, and stared at the ceiling. Rebecca's pillow still smelled like her shampoo. Some floral scent I'd never bothered to learn the name of. I picked up my phone and typed out a text. I'm sorry. Can we please talk? I stared at it for a long time before deleting it. What was there to talk about? She'd said everything that needed saying. The only thing left was for me to actually hear it. Instead, I opened my browser and typed, "Therapists near me." I didn't make an appointment that night, but I looked, and that felt like something. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the curtains Rebecca had picked out 2 years ago. I'd thought they were too bright. She'd insisted they'd help us wake up easier. She'd been right. I made coffee in the pot she'd bought because she said the old one made everything taste burnt. I thought she was being picky, but this coffee did taste better. I sat at the kitchen table, the one she'd found at a flea market, and refinished herself, and looked around the apartment. Everything in it, I realized, had been chosen by her. The art on the walls, the throw pillows on the couch, the plants in the window that I'd watered maybe twice in 4 years. This wasn't our apartment. It was her apartment that I happened to live in. My phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. "I'll come by on Tuesday to get the rest of my things. Please don't be there." Just like that. No opening for discussion. No softening of the message. I typed back, "Okay." What else was there to say? Over the next few days, I went through the motions. Showed up to work. Responded to emails. Nodded in meetings. All the things I'd been doing for years on autopilot. But this time, I noticed it. I noticed every time I zoned out during a conversation. Every time I reached for my phone instead of engaging with the person in front of me. Every time I gave a surface-level response instead of actually thinking about what was being asked. It was exhausting, actually paying attention. On Tuesday, I stayed late at work. When I came home that evening, Rebecca's things were gone. The closet was half empty. The bathroom counter looked sparse. The bookshelf had gaps like missing teeth. She'd left the curtains, the coffee pot, the kitchen table, all the stuff she'd picked out for us. Maybe she didn't want the reminders. Or maybe she figured I needed them more than she did. There was a note on the counter. "Thank you for the years we had. I hope you find what you're looking for." Not love. Not hugs and kisses. Just thank you, and I hope. I sat down at the kitchen table and did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I cried. Really cried. Not the stoic, controlled crying that I'd done at my dad's funeral, but the ugly, gasping kind that comes from somewhere deep and hurts on the way out. I cried for my dad, for Rebecca, for the version of myself that I'd let die without even noticing. And when I was done, I picked up my phone and made that therapy appointment. The therapist's name was Dr. Patricia Chun. She had an office in a building downtown with terrible parking and art prints that looked like they came from a hotel clearance sale. "Tell me what brings you here," she said at our first session. So I told her about Rebecca, about my dad, about the autopilot, about being 42 years old and just now realizing I'd been sleepwalking through my own life. "Why do you think you shut down after your father died?" she asked. "I don't know. I had to keep going, you know. I had work. I had bills. I had Rebecca. I couldn't just fall apart." "Why not?" The question caught me off guard. Because what good would that do? Falling apart doesn't change anything. It doesn't bring him back. "No," she agreed. "But it does let you process the loss. It lets you grieve. When we don't allow ourselves to feel difficult emotions, we don't just shut down the pain. We shut down everything." Rebecca said something like that. She sounds like a perceptive person. She is. I paused. I don't know what tense to use anymore. "You can still think of her as perceptive even though the relationship is over," Dr. Chin said. "Ending a relationship doesn't negate the truth of who people are." Over the next few weeks, we dug deeper. Into my childhood, raised by a single mom who worked 3 jobs and didn't have time for emotional conversations. Into my patterns, always the reliable one, the steady one, the one who didn't make waves. Into my fears, that if I let myself feel too much, I'd lose control completely. Control is an illusion, Dr. Chan said during one session. The more tightly you try to hold on to it, the more life slips through your fingers. I thought about Rebecca, about how I'd taken her presence for granted, assuming she'd always be there because she always had been. How I'd controlled my emotions so well that I'd stopped having them altogether. I want to text her, I admitted, almost every day, to tell her what I'm learning, to show her I'm trying. Why don't you? Because she asked me not to, and because I think maybe this isn't about getting her back. It's about not making the same mistakes again. Dr. Chin smiled. That's probably the most insightful thing you've said since you started coming here. 3 months after Rebecca left, I ran into her at the grocery store. She was in the produce section, examining avocados with the same concentration she used to examine paint samples. "Hi," I said, my heart suddenly racing. She looked up, startled. "Oh, hi." She looked different, lighter somehow. She'd cut her hair shorter. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen before. "How are you?" I asked. "Good," she said, and she seemed to mean it. "Really good, actually. I started classes last month. Architecture program at State." "That's amazing. Congratulations." "Thanks." There was an awkward pause. "How are you?" "I'm working on things. I've been seeing a therapist." Her expression softened slightly. "That's good. I'm glad." "I'm sorry," I blurted out. "For everything. For not seeing you. For taking you for granted. For being so checked out that I missed the entire end of our relationship." She set down the avocado she'd been holding. "I appreciate you saying that. Truly. But you know it doesn't change anything, right?" "I know. I'm not saying it to change anything. I'm just saying it because it's true. Because you deserved better than what I gave you." She studied my face for a moment, like she was looking for something. "You know what the weird thing is? I'm not angry anymore. I was for a while. But now I'm just glad we both got out before we completely lost ourselves." "Are you happy?" "Yeah," she said, and she smiled. "I really am. It's scary, starting over at 39. But it's also kind of thrilling. I forgot what it felt like to be excited about my life." "I'm glad," I said, and I meant it. "You deserve to be excited." "So do you," she said gently. "I hope you figure that out." She picked up her avocados and put them in her basket. "Take care of yourself, okay? You too." I watched her walk away, past the bananas and the organic berries and out of sight. And I felt, not happy exactly, but not devastated either. Just the kind of bittersweet acceptance. She'd moved on, really moved on. And maybe that was okay. I grabbed my own groceries, actually thinking about what I wanted to eat instead of just grabbing whatever was convenient, and drove home. That night, I made dinner. Not takeout, actual dinner. Chicken and vegetables, following a recipe I found online. It wasn't fancy, but it was edible, and I'd made it myself. I ate at the kitchen table, the one Rebecca had refinished. I looked at the curtains she'd picked out, the plants I'd actually been watering, and I thought about the new year. The one that had started so catastrophically. The one where I'd lost my relationship but found something else. Not happiness, not yet, but the possibility of it. The awareness of what I'd been missing. My phone rang. "David. Hey man, you want to grab drinks this weekend? Maybe catch that new movie." "Yeah," I said. "That sounds good." And this time, when I said it, I actually meant it. I was actually present for the conversation. Actually engaged. It was a small thing. But small things, I was learning, were actually the biggest things of all. I finished my dinner and washed my dishes. Opened a book I'd been meaning to read for 2 years. Made it through 3 chapters before getting sleepy. Before bed, I looked at myself in the mirror. Same face. Same lines around the eyes. But something different in the expression. I looked like someone who was starting to wake up. It was January. The new year was 3 months old. I was 42, single, living alone for the first time in 6 years, and starting over in ways I never expected. But for the first time in longer than I could remember, I wasn't on autopilot. I was here, present, awake, and maybe, Eventually, that would be enough.